Panphonics Sound Shower Speakers Installation Guide. What you need to consider before installing our speakers. You need to consider mainly 3 points: characteristics of the installation site, desired audio spots, and characteristics of Panphonics speakers. Size of the space, height of the ceiling, noise level, floor and wall materials, and possibility of attaching speakers to the ceiling and to walls are characteristics of the installation site. For the desired audio spots, you need to determine whether you would like to cover very limited spot, for example, just a spot in front of a screen, or narrow but rather long, for example, along a corridor in a supermarket. The third point you need to consider is the different characteristics of our speaker panels, square and rectangle. Square speaker panels have just around 4 degrees of sound opening to all directions, while rectangle speaker panels have the same directivity sideways when placed in landscape mode, but vertically it has around 20 degrees of sound opening angle in order to cover long distance with a narrow opening. Now let's look at these 3 points more closely. First, the height of the ceiling and the size of the space have an impact on how Panphonics Sound Shower speakers can achieve high directivity. Because the further the distance from our speakers to the targeted audience, the more careful you need to be in achieving directivity. Therefore, if you would like to place our speakers to the ceiling, and if the ceiling is very high, for example more than 5 meters tall, then we strongly recommend to use wires to attach the speakers to the ceiling, in order to have a shorter distance between the speaker and the targeted audience. Also, in this phase, you need to find out whether mounting to both ceilings and walls are physically possible, or only one of the two is a possibility. The next point is the ambient noise level of the installation site. You can easily achieve high directivity with sound shower speakers when there's ambient noise in the site, like in supermarkets or shopping centers. This is because the bleeding sound from the slightly opening angles would be killed by ambient noise, resulting in easily achieved directional sound environment. However, in quiet places with less ambient noise, such as museums, you need to be careful to minimize the bleeding of the sound. For this reason, we highly recommend square speaker panels whenever installable, since square speaker panels have the highest directivity to all directions. Also, if the ambient noise level in the installation site changes constantly, our new amplifier AA160 has automatic volume adjustment feature according to the ambient noise level. The last point in this section is the materials of the floor or the wall, since hard surfaces such as glass reflect the sound, so that the sound from our speakers might be reflected to a different spot other than the desired audio spot. So you need to remember that when the directional audio is played from our speakers toward a hard surface, it reflects like a pen light toward a mirror. Placing a carpet on the floor or curtains to the windows are just examples of how you can minimize the sound reflection of hard surfaces. After you have listed the characteristics of the installation site, now it is time to decide what area you would like to cover with the sound coming from Panphonics Sound Shower speakers. It can mainly be divided into 2 spots. 1. Very narrow in all direction. 2. Narrow but long sound coverage. For very narrow spot, the most suitable installation would be mounting a square speaker panel to the ceiling facing down to cover the head of the targeted audience, typically a person standing in front of a screen. For the other type, narrow but long sound coverage, rectangle models are suitable, and how far the sound is carried over can easily be adjusted with the angle when placed vertically against the floor in landscape mode. You will see a few examples in the last section of this video. Finally, let's look at the characteristics of our speakers. As I have mentioned in this video, we have a square speaker panel and rectangle speaker panel. First, the square model has very high directivity to all directions, which means that even in quiet place, it contributes to high directional sound environment, and it is suitable for installation that requires very narrow sound coverage. On the other hand, rectangle model has narrow but vertically wider sound coverage. Like in the picture, if the rectangle model is placed vertically against the floor and in landscape mode, the sound opening or bleeding is almost as narrow as square model sideways, but it widely opens vertically as shown with red marks in the picture. This is to cover narrow but long sound coverage, typically along a corridor in a shopping center or supermarket. Now, let's have a look at actual installations. First, the installations from supermarket and convenience store. The picture on the left has a rectangle model shooting toward a corridor to create a target sound advertisement in a supermarket, or what we call attention booster solution. The same attention booster solution on the right side is from a smaller convenience shop with displays. The installation required narrower spot just to cover when a shopper is right in front of the screen. Therefore, a square model is mounted to the ceiling facing down. The next set of examples is from shopping centers. The picture on the left is a set of displays and rectangle sound shower speakers as an attention booster solution to attract shoppers' attention. The example on the right has an integrated rectangle speakers into the display, shooting the sound toward an escalator. In both examples, rectangle models contribute in delivering directional audio in quite long distance of 15 to 20 meters in order to attract the attention of shoppers well in time as they are moving toward the display. Now we have examples from museums. As we have learned that in a place where ambient noise level is low, creating a directional audio environment becomes more difficult. Also, museums have often hard surface floors with high ceilings. Therefore, square models facing down and often using wires to place the speakers as low as possible, in other words, as close as possible to the ears of listeners, in order to achieve even higher directivity. Example on the left managed to create different audio zones in front of each line of displays even though the displays are close to each other. The example on the right has wires to hang the speaker since the ceiling was too high to create a highly directional audio spot just in front of the screen. Here are the last set of examples. On the left, we have a storyteller solution installed in kids' play area in a furniture shop. In order to cover an area where 5 or 6 kids can listen to stories and music, rectangle model is installed above the area with some angles to cover the correct spot. The example on the right side is what we call mood maker solution, in which rectangle model is again installed above a fish market section of a supermarket, delivering various sounds of waves and seagulls to attract shoppers' attention towards seafood ingredients. Since the sound coverage required several meters in front of the fish section, the rectangle model was chosen. Now you have all the information what you need to consider in installing Panphonics Sound Shower speakers.